victories are those of peace and not of war. Peace is not an absence of conflict, it is the ability to handle the conflict by peaceful means. A very good morning to all of you present here. I welcome you to the Ananta Sarker and Snehalata Sarker Memorial Lecture, endorsed by Professor Annapurna Sarker, on Eastern South Asia Today, Issues of Diplomacy and Peace, organized by the Peace Studies Cell in collaboration with the Departments of History, Philosophy and Political Science of Scottish Church College. To deliver the welcome address, I would like to invite our Principal Ma'am, Dr. Mudhumanjari Mandal, to the dais. And along with Ma'am, I would also invite our guests to the dais, Eminent journalist and author Shri Deep Halder and Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti, Professor, Department of History and Convenor, Academic Committee, Institute of Foreign Policy Studies, University of Calcutta, along with our Vice Principal. Sir, would you all please come to the dais?
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti, Professor, Department of History and Convenor, Academic Committee, Institute of Foreign Policy Studies, University of Calcutta, who will be the chairperson of today's technical sessions. Dr. Pratip Chattopadhyay, Associate Professor, Department of Political Science, University of Kalyani, Sri Deep Halder, Eminent author and journalist. They will be the two eminent speakers of today's seminar, Dr. Supratim Das, Vice Principal, Dr. Shamrat Bhattacharjee, IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Rupendranath Nundi Bursar, Dr. Vidisha Sinha, Senator Secretary, Dr. Indrani Kaur, Teachers Council Secretary, my respected colleagues from different colleges and from our college, from Scottish Church College, Dr. Riddhi Bhattacharya and Dr. Srimati Go Thakurta, Joint Convener of Peace Studies Cell in our college, and their team, and last but not the least, my dear students from our college and from other colleges. On behalf of Scottish Church College family, this morning I welcome you all. This seminar is dedicated in the memory of Ananta Sarker and Snehalata Sarker, parents of Professor Annapurna Sarker, who has generously donated an endowment to hold the lectures on international and national peace processes. We are thankful to her for her kind donation, for spreading the message of peace among the young generation, among the students of our college and of other colleges. I am grateful to the speakers and the moderator of technical session for accepting our invitation, and as they are present with us today. The three departments who are the organizers with the Peace Studies Cell are the History, Political Science and Philosophy, And the head of the departments are Professor Debaduti Banerjee, Dr. Pratip Chattopadhyay, and Dr. Barbie Roy. And at this juncture, for the organizers, they deserve, I think, a bit round of applause. Including the Peace Study Cell conveners. So a big round of applause for both of you. Thank you very much. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you again. May God bless us all.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now be felicitating our guests. I would invite our principal, ma'am, Dr. Madhumanjari Mandal, to felicitate our eminent speaker, Shri Deep Halder. Ma'am will be assisted by Professor Pratip Chattopadhyay of the Department of Political Science. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Professor Roy. Our chairperson, Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti, will be felicitated by our vice principal, sir, Dr. Supratim Das. Sir will be assisted by Professor Barbie Roy of the Department of Philosophy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Roy. We make war that we may live in peace. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. To introduce the Ananta Kumar Sarker and Snehalata Sarker Memorial Lecture, I invite our Vice Principal, sir, Dr. Supratim Das.
Very good morning. I think I need to say a few words about the particular caption of today's lecture, because this is Ananta Kumar Sarker and Snehalata Sarker Memorial Lecture, and under this a particular title has been given, issues in Eastern South Asia, issues of peace, etc. I'm not going into that. Mind it that this particular lecture, it has a short but very rich history. Because Ananta Kumar Sarker and Snehalata Sarker, already principal has mentioned, they were parents of Professor Annapurna Sarker. Professor Annapurna Sarker, when she actually gave a donation of 3 lakh rupees to Scottish Church College as an alumnus of this college in 2019, February 2019, by that time she was already 92 years old. Her date of birth, as I know, is 13 February, 6 February, and the purpose was really very noble, because she wanted to introduce something that will really pay in the years to come in violence-torn world, because her main objective was to do something for global peace. She gave an interview in that year, 2019, to a Bengali newspaper. I am just quoting. What did she say at that time? she said, চারদিকে এত হানাহানি অশান্তি ও গোলমাল, এসব এই বয়সে আর ভালো লাগে না। আমি চাই পড়ুয়া শিক্ষক এবং গবেষকরা শুভবুদ্ধি দিয়ে অশুভ শক্তির পরিবর্তন করুক, ছাত্রছাত্রী ও শিক্ষকদের মধ্যে ঐক্য দৃঢ় হোক। আর স্কটিশ চার্চ কলেজ তো আমার প্রাণ, তাই ওদের জন্যই এই টাকা দিয়েছি। Now, Professor Sarker, who is very sick now, very recently she also had another accident, and she is 97 years old now. But her memory is extremely sharp, and she can recall everything. Mind it that our first lecture was organized in February 2019. We got two scholars at that time, Professor Shivashish Chattopadhyay and Professor Kingshuk Chattopadhyay, and they spoke on war and peace in Asia. This was in 2019. Then in February 2023, every time it is held in February because February is the month of Professor Annapurna Sarkar's birth. In 2023 February, we had an international students' conference, online of course. I am very proud to say that we had a memorandum of understanding with the University of Warsaw, Poland, sometime in 2023 or maybe late 2022. And we are very grateful to Professor Shantanu Chakrabarti because of his active support and help we could do it. And this was the first important milestone. Some of our students and some of the students from the Warsaw University, they actually took part in a global conference, online conference on the issues of peace. Very rich papers were presented, and I am hopeful very soon we will see a publication, because as far as I know that it is almost ready. It is just forthcoming. And this is the third occasion. And although we have chosen a particular area called Eastern South Asia, you can very well understand the focus will be on Bangladesh. I would not say much on this, just a few words. This is my experience. And before that, I would like to share with you that Annapurna Sarkar, she was actually born in Dhaka, Bangladesh, long back. She studied in this college physics, and then she taught in Bethune College. So this is a particular area where academically she remained confined all through her life. She was an outstanding student, scholar, and a very well-known teacher, and a very outstanding researcher. So she was born in Bangladesh. We know that what is happening in Bangladesh is not at all welcome. I will just say one comment. To the best of my knowledge, what was called Mujibism or Mujibbad ultimately was rather caricatured by the fundamentalist forces in Bangladesh
I'm not naming anybody, any organization, that this is just a copy-paste from the West, from Western culture, from Europe and America. And that this is because of this, because of the failure of Mujibism to put up a secular, joint democratic front, it was argued that fundamentalist forces, they actually had an outburst. We have seen unthinkable violence since July. We all know that the story started with a student unrest, but now the ball is set rolling on, and just 2 days back, Mujibur Rahman's ancestral home was destroyed. It was absolutely ruined. So there is nothing but vandalism in Bangladesh, but it has historical roots. As a social scientist, I must say that it has long historical roots. I contributed an article in the Desh Potrika a few months back. There I wanted to show, I did not know what is going to happen more, but as a social scientist, I could guess that this is nothing but a distant thunder, Oshoni Sanket for India. And we have two specialists today. We have a very well-known expert in foreign policy studies, in foreign relations, Professor Shantanu Chakrabarti with us also. So they will enrich, they will contribute. I only hope that in a very welcome, decent atmosphere, there will be very good discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Asia is rich in people, rich in culture, and rich in resources, said an eminent spokesperson. It is also rich in trouble. Apart from the grim prospect of war, South Asia also faces many current issues, including economic challenges, political instability, and geopolitical maneuvering. I now invite Dr. Riddhi Bhattacharya, Coordinator Peace Studies Cell and Associate Professor of the Department of History, to introduce the concept Eastern South Asia.
Good morning, all. We are running a bit late, so I would try to be as brief as possible. I've been asked to situate the region of Eastern South Asia. Now, the sub-region of Eastern South Asia consists of the sovereign nations of Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, the 7 northeastern Indian states, along with West Bengal and Sikkim. This sub-region was once part of the sub-regional cooperation grouping known as the South Asian Growth Quadrangle, or the SAGQ, which was mooted under the Sarker in 1997. It was active till about 2010 and afterwards have become defunct. But the term Eastern South Asia has been in vogue since then in the international study circuit. The sub-region of Eastern South Asia lies roughly between 27 and 25 degree north latitude and 86 and 92 degree east longitude. It has a total area of 688.6 thousand square kilometers with a population of around 441 million. It is home to at least 6% of the world's population, along with 22% of the world's poor. So we can understand this is one of the poorest regions of the world. This sub-region is plagued by high levels of illiteracy, prevalence of poor health condition. Historically, the sub-region has been the profitable hinterland for several colonial powers. which perhaps was one of the major reasons for its backwardness in all sectors like education, health, industry, agriculture, infrastructure. But I'm a student of history, and I'm also the coordinator of peace studies. And as a student of history, we always learn from the past. And one of the liberal thinkers of peace building, or one of the liberal thinkers who had written a lot about peace building was Marquis de Condorcet, one of the eminent deputies of the Constituent Assembly of the French during the French Revolution, along with a leading encyclopedist. So he had asked us and he has advised us to look into the positives. So I should say the sub-regional potential, the potential of the sub-region is not bad. In fact, the sub-region is rich in terms of natural resources, which if harnessed properly, could perhaps change the entire scenario. The sub-region shares one of the most fertile river basins of the world, the Ganges, Brahmaputra, Meghna river basin. It is endowed with natural endowments like hydropower potential of Nepal and Bhutan, coal resources of West Bengal, hydrocarbon resources of Bangladesh, Assam, and Tripura, which makes this sub-region one of the most potential source of cheap electricity and energy if it is properly harnessed. Additionally, there are large non-energy mineral deposits, forest resources, livestock and marine resources, and a useful network of port cities in Chittagong, Mongla, Calcutta, and Haldia. Moreover, the people of the sub-region, both poor and non-poor, make a huge workforce of hard-working and disciplined workers. Given an opportunity to be productively employed with suitable investment in their skill formation, this workforce will be a major competitive advantage to the sub-region. The rice fields of Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna basins also constitute one of the largest granaries of the world. With appropriate investment in improvement of agricultural productivity and efficient water management, this granary can comfortably feed the large workforce of this sub-region at a reasonable price. This sub-region not only shares the geographical features of mountains, jungles, and rivers, and landlockedness in the case of Nepal, Bhutan, and India's northeastern states, but also the ecological hazards emanating from floods, environmental degradation. Historically, this sub-region was well integrated, and there was social intercourse between the people due to active trade and commerce. And it happened from time immemorial. But with independence and partition, this traditional link was lost due to the creation of national border, because we know partition was a product of politics over economics. Now, the present situation in this sub-region is extremely turmoil. There is political instability, democratic subversion, and rise of extremism. One can debate, one can say, that's what I personally believe, that it is part of the colonial legacy, because the situation in the situation of political extremity and neighborly bad blood is a product of this. The situation in the major power of the sub-region, which is Bangladesh, because compared to other Nepal, Bhutan, the northeastern states, West Bengal, and Sikkim taken together, Bangladesh is has the largest economy in terms of GDP, PPP or purchasing parity. So one can say that the situation in Bangladesh is extremely tensed and most volatile at present. And the situation in Bangladesh has spilled over in the sub-region. I hope in this seminar, its effects and how we can come out of it, or the way out of it, can be dealt. So we are all eagerly waiting for some brainstorming and thought-provoking lectures. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya. We will now move on to our first technical sessions, and I would request Shri Deep Halder to continue on stage. because I'll be introducing you. You can, yeah, you will have the first technical session, and I will be also introducing Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti, our chairperson. He will also continue to remain on the dais. Professor Shantanu Chakrabarti holds the position of professor in the Department of History, University of Calcutta. He has been a visiting fellow and researcher in several national and international universities and think tanks, including the Indian Council of World Affairs, New Delhi, Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, New Delhi, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, RCSS, Colombo, Uppsala University, Sweden, Dublin City University, Ireland, University of Warsaw and the UMCS, Lublin, Poland, National University of Singapore, Michalos Romeris University, Lithuania, and the University of Ljubljana, Slovenia. He was awarded the Benemerito Award by the Government of Poland in 2014. He is currently the Deputy Editor-in-Chief in the editorial board of Stosunki Międzynarodowe International Relations. It's a journal of the Faculty of Political Science and International Studies of the University of Warsaw and a member of the advisory board of the UNISCI Research Unit on International Security and Cooperation, University of Madrid. He is also currently the honorary president of the Association of European Studies in India, the AESI. Sir's research interests include contemporary history and international relations, and has authored and edited 10 books and several articles in leading journals. So we are delighted to have such an eminent person among us, and he has consented to be the chairperson for today. So students and everyone present here, let us once again give him a warm round of applause. I will now go on to our first speaker of the session. Shri Deep Halder is an author and journalist. He has headed newsrooms in leading Indian media outlets in Delhi, Mumbai, Bhopal and Ahmedabad. Currently, he is the contributing editor with The Print, and he writes on Bengal and Bangladesh. He is the author of the best-selling books Blood Island and Oral History of the Marich Jhapi Massacre, Bengal 2021, an Election Diary, and Being Hindu in Bangladesh, an Untold Story. So once again, students, let us give a big round of applause as I invite Shri Deep Halder to the dais.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Mandal. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Mandal, my esteemed co-speaker, renowned academics, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little intimidating to stand here before you today. When my friend Pradipto told me to deliver a lecture here, I heard the topic of discussion and I wanted to say no. But he assured me that, I can come and speak my mind. But listening to the talks that happened before this, I'm thinking that I should quickly run away because I'm severely limited by my intellect, and the topic of discussion today is rather expansive. But let me still try. What can a journalist possibly tell you about Bangladesh that you have not already seen on Republic Bangla? You know the temples being attacked. You know the the chaos on the streets. You know the political instability, and you have also heard many conspiracy theories of parts of Bangladesh suddenly seceding and joining India. But I think some of those fears came true on Wednesday night when you saw rather dramatic and very concerning visuals of Dhanmondi 32 being brought down by a mob of students, political activists, anti-Hasina protesters,
and many others. It's very difficult to say who exactly brought it down because there were a lot of people. And my young friend Oishni is here today, and she was coming with me here, and I was telling her that, we often try to reduce an argument, especially this is the problem with the press, into saying, okay, this is a mob that is an Islamist mob, or this is a mob that is an anti-Hasina mob. But today on a Facebook reel, I saw a very bright young student, not unlike you all, who was part of the mob that brought down 32 Dhanmondi on Wednesday night, an action that continued well into Thursday morning, and who actually quoted from one of my favorite Batman films, The Dark Knight. He said that if you stay long enough in power, you see yourself, if you stay long enough as a hero, you see yourself becoming a villain. And he said that that's what Hasina is, and that's what Mujib was. And it got me thinking that, back in Delhi, when I walk into my newsroom at the Print, or, previously when I used to run a newsroom in India Today, how simply we would put together news items by saying that this unruly mob has gone out into the streets to unleash chaos. Yes, it's an unruly mob. Yes, what happened was not desirable. But is it so easy to decipher the mentality of each and everybody who was there in the crowd? The boy, as I said, was 20. So all the arguments you hear from this side, which is that Bangladesh is trying to rewrite its birth story, Bangladesh has brought down the house of the man who gave birth to Bangladesh, the tallest leader Bangladesh ever saw. His house is now in rambles. But for that young boy, perhaps, it was the house of the father of a dictator who was the only political leader he saw ever since, he started following current affairs. So for a whole lot of young people in Bangladesh, the argument is not framed according to what was 71 and what was after, or what is communalism, what is secularism, or what is pro-India, what is anti-India. It is simply anger against Sheikh Hasina, who was, according to the vast majority of them, a dictator who continued to stay on in power, stole elections, and put most of our political opponents in jail, said yes to forced disappearances, custodial tortures, widespread corruption by her government. And it was an anger that you saw on Wednesday night in the people who brought down the house of Mujib. Now, a lot of talk you will hear going forward on the death or the gradual death of secularism in Bangladesh. Let me tell you an incident from 2 years ago, 2023. My co-author, the bright young professor, Dr. Abhishek Bishwas, was with me. We were in the process of writing a book on Bangladesh, and he and I decided, and how most of the academics are. I'm sorry, but they are more into classrooms, like they should be, more into reading of research papers, and like they should, but perhaps not so much into going out and seeing what's happening out there in the whole wide world, and which I'd request, in fact, all of you young students today to do, because please go out and see whether what you are reading in books or what you are hearing in classrooms is the only truth, or there are various versions of the truth. So I literally forced my young professor friend, Dr. Bishwas, to go out into Bangladesh to see for ourselves what is the reality of Bangladesh. Now, we were writing a book titled Being Hindu in Bangladesh. So we knew what we are going to write. We knew that we are not looking at a whole country, we are looking at a percentage of the population, Hindus, and of course we are going to write that not so great things are happening with the Hindus in Bangladesh. So we knew what we are going to write. We went out to sort of see evidence of what we are going to write and corroborate those in the book. We went to a place called Magura district, which is far away into the interiors of Bangladesh. And there, during Durga Puja, we saw that in a tiny little village, it's not there in the tourism map of Bangladesh, there is a 300-year-old Kali temple. Okay, this is 2020, as recent as 2023. There is a 300-year-old Kali temple which had been washed, which is very pious, and a lot of people from adjoining villages during Durga Puja sort of go there. And that Kali temple had been washed away a couple of years ago by flood. Okay, and it so happens that the Hindus in that particular village are not so well-to-do. So the Muslims in the village had come together to rebuild that Kali temple. Okay, this is not your standard secularism debate. This is in the interior of Bangladesh, where even Bangladeshi press do not often go to. In fact, when I wrote that article, it became a much talked about article in Delhi, and not just in Delhi, in Dhaka, because some of my journalist friends in Dhaka did not know that this has happened. Because you go to Dhaka and you see these 3-4 important spaces, religious space, Hindu religious spaces, where you see and talk about secularism. But in the deep interior of Bangladesh, here's a 300-year-old Kali temple washed away by the floods, where village Muslims put in money to rebuild that temple for the Hindus from that village and the adjoining villages who come every year to pray before the goddess. Now, we were fascinated, both Abhishek and I, and we stayed on in that village for a bit. And we got to know that not only that Kali temple, but every year during Durga Puja, and in that village, the Durga Puja pandal is set up very near to that Kali temple. Hindus and Muslims come together to celebrate Durga Puja. Okay, and they don't do it because they have to adhere to some notion of secularism. They do it because it's part of their cultural fabric. And I saw it with my own eyes that during Durga Puja, women clad fully in burqa, sitting in plastic chairs outside the pandal and looking at the goings-on inside the pandal for 4 days. And they are taking prasad, they are interacting with their Hindu neighbors, and they're interacting very casually. It's not as if they're doing some great thing. It's just part of who they are. It's not necessarily prasad that they're taking in as prasad. Maybe they're taking it as food, as a gesture of goodwill to their Hindu neighbors. But I saw that it is so commonplace to be quote-unquote secular in Bangladesh. And this is 2023. Okay? This year, when all of these things are happening, Saraswati Puja just happened. If you do a little digging, you will see that in Dhaka University campus, Saraswati Puja was celebrated, was held with much pomp and grandeur. And you'd be surprised that, I was in Dhaka University, Jagannath Hall of Dhaka University campus, which is a cluster of hostel buildings for minority students, mostly Hindus, where often Muslim students come forward from the arts department to design the structure of the pandal. Also sometimes how the Saraswati idol would be sculpted. Okay? And this is also this year. Incidentally, the person who took us to see Bangladesh, it is through his eyes that we saw Bangladesh and we saw the plight of Hindus in Bangladesh, is a gentleman whose name is Shahidul Hasan Khokon. He's a dear friend of mine. Okay? And Abhishek and I would not have been able to write the book had it not been for the help that Shahidul extended to us. And both Abhishek and I have stayed in his house in Puran Dhaka. I could have stayed elsewhere, but we decided to stay in his house in Puran Dhaka. And trust me, no ounce of religiosity came between us, right? That guy today is in exile. He's being hunted by forces, quote unquote, extremist forces within Bangladesh. And I think there's a sedition case slapped against him. There are people out there looking for him. Even his family is unsafe. They're hiding in a village. He's trying to escape from Bangladesh into India, but there is fear in his heart that if he tries, he can't come from Bangladesh to India by air because his name is out there. So he'll be accosted at the airport. he is wondering if he will cross the border through by walking from part of Bangladesh to a part of India. But that again is fraught with danger, because the border guards Bangladesh is extremely active today, and they are shooting them. They also have a list of people who probably try to come over to India, and if he is caught, he will be shot down, or worse, taken to jail, and there will be custodial torture. Now, like I said, it is through the eyes of our friend Shahidul Hasan Khokon that we saw Bangladesh, that we saw how a percentage of the Bangladeshi population that is so much in discussion these days on television channels and newspapers and news outlets, the Hindus in Bangladesh, how they are. So it's very difficult for me to stand here, or stand anywhere for that matter, and say that Hindus in Bangladesh are worse off than Muslims in Bangladesh. But are they not? That's the big question. And is it something that's happening only because Sheikh Hasina, dictator Sheikh Hasina, as her detractors would like to say, has been ousted out of power, and she fled Bangladesh on August 5th last year in a military helicopter? I think we make a mistake when we try to say that things have gone wrong in Bangladesh only after August 5th. Our book came out in October 2023, and the book was called Being Hindu in Bangladesh. In the book, we tried to show that while India and Bangladesh were great strategic allies during Hasina's reign, and the then Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, had a fairly good strategic relationship with Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, things were not okay beneath the surface. Some of it, I think a little bit of it, you saw before Hasina fled during a cricket match, when there was all-round celebration by cricket fans when India lost in the semi-finals. And you would wonder that why are they celebrating India's defeat? They should have been celebrating their victory, but they are out of the game long ago. Why is it that they are so happy that India has lost? Now, these are young people, and like I said, like the young boy who was part of the mob that brought down the house of Mujib on Wednesday night, these young cricket fans were not necessarily happy at India's defeat, because India is a Hindu majority country. Perhaps some of them, if not all of them, were happy that India lost the match because they see India as a colonizing force. They see India as a big brother who's dictating through Sheikh Hasina how her country should be run. But even that is not the whole truth. This gentleman, Shahidul Hasan Khokon, stays in a place called Puran Dhaka, Old Dhaka. And thanks to him, I got to know some of his neighbors. And one of the neighbors' sons was extremely, over a course of the days I spent in that area, got very friendly with him. It's a young 9-year-old boy. And he would spend time with me, and he said that once he grows up, he wants to be part of the Indian Army, because he finds the Indian Army very cool. He saw the film Uri, and he says, I want to be like, Vicky Kaushal. But during the day, he would go to two kinds of schools. In the morning, early morning at 7, he would go to the local madrasa. So from 7 to 8:30, he will be in the madrasa. Then he would come, take his breakfast, and go to the English medium school that his parents sent him to. So during that interim period, sometimes he would see me, he would meet me, because I would be at Shahidul's place, and Shahidul was his neighbor, so he would come to talk to me. I would have also woken up at that time, so he would have his breakfast and he would come and speak to me. So one day, straight out of the madrasa, he looked at me and he said that, are you a Hindu? So I said, it's a troubling question, because I'm not anything else, but I don't necessarily always identify myself as a proud Hindu or whatever. But I'm also not anything else. So he said that, but why are you a Hindu? So I said, but why not? So he said, because Hindus want to kill us. So I said, but you are in Bangladesh, which Hindu is wanting to kill you? So the little boy, he said, no, not just Hindus, Yahudis and Christians, they all want to kill us. So I said, but who's telling you all this? You know, nobody's coming to kill you in Bangladesh. You're the Puran Dhaka, big building. Your father's well-to-do. You're going to 2 schools, madrasa and this English medium school. Who's going trying to kill you here? So he said, no, everybody is against us. And then a few days later, he said, why don't you become a Muslim? So I told him, look, I have to become a Hindu first properly before I can think of, becoming something else. Not that I mind being something else, but first I have to be what I was born into before I can attempt to be something else. He said, no, if you're a Muslim, then things will be all right between you and I. So I realized, and very, very funnily, and this is a lived experience, okay? This is no book, this is no journal, this is no theoretical discussion. This is a talk with a 9-year-old I had in Puran Dhaka, an extremely bright little boy. And I realized that magically almost during the course of the day, his attitude towards me would change and he would not ask me those questions. Later in the day when he came back from his other school, the English medium school he went to, okay? It's only during the morning, straight out of the madrasa, where he heard what he heard or where he spoke to what he spoke to, that he was faced with these very troubling existential questions. And he looked at me, somebody who's his father's friend or friend's friend, not through the lens of anything else, but through the lens of religiosity. Now, I did not, unfortunately perhaps, or fortunately, I don't know, get a chance to go and sit inside a madrasa in Bangladesh. But I got a chance to know during the course of my research for the book from secular bloggers, Bangladeshi secular bloggers who are now in exile in Europe, America, what goes on in some of the madrasas in Bangladesh. So Asad Noor, who's a very famous Bangladeshi blogger and a dear friend of mine, who is in exile in somewhere, in the West. I don't want to say where he is because there's a threat to his life. And we are in regular contact. He told me that he was born in a Bangladeshi village. And he was sent to a madrasa by his parents. And he said what he was fed as a daily diet, educational diet, day in and day out for the most productive years of his childhood, made him ferociously anti-Hindu. Okay? And it is only much later when he came from the small village to the big city and he met many leftist friends in college that he became part of the secular blogger movement, which is very famous, and a lot of bloggers were killed by radicals. And his friends were killed. That he realized that what he was taught was not something he should live his life by. And he told me in no uncertain terms that, look, if there were 50 students in my class who as a daily educational diet heard what I heard, what are the chances that later in life all of them would allow other streams of thought to come into their mind and become more secular, more liberal citizens of the country? Isn't there a chance that out of those 50, 30, 35, 20, 25 people would come out, would grow up to become rabidly anti-minority, would become rabidly anti-Hindu, would not look at anything else except what is taught to them at a very formative year. And this is a Bangladeshi Muslim speaking, okay, who's now in exile. There is no Hindu Muslim here. It is just a Bangladeshi Muslim blogger talking about his fellow Bangladeshi Muslims. Now, Asad Noor is very brave. Asad Noor is also sort of, he calls himself an atheist blogger. But my friend who's in hiding, Shahidul Hasan Khokon, he is very much a Muslim, okay? He's a praying Muslim. And like I said, he's in hiding, he's trying to come to India because if he's caught in Bangladesh, he will be killed or, taken to jail, or there would be custodial torture on his family. He told me last year, if Sheikh Hasina goes, and I know Sheikh Hasina is extremely problematic and a lot has gone wrong in this country over the past 15 years because of Sheikh Hasina. But if Sheikh Hasina suddenly goes, a vacuum, political vacuum will be created, and forces that will come up, and those forces are so problematic that forget the book you are writing, forget being Hindu in Bangladesh. It will be difficult for Muslims like me to survive in this country. Today, and I constantly think of Asad Noor and Shahidul Hasan Khokon, and that little boy who every day would come out of the madrasa and look at me with very questioning eyes, though he was and he remains very close to me. I speak to him still over phone. I constantly think about these things as I see what's happening in Bangladesh. And I was asked to write an article for the print yesterday, saying that you please make sense for us about what happened to 32 Dhanmundi. And the obvious thing would be to blame Dr. Muhammad Yunus, to say he had and he has as far as this particular instance is concerned, he has failed, because I'm sure he could have protected 32 Dhanmundi. There were army, paramilitary people standing right there doing nothing. But I actually, in the article and even in my thoughts, took it back to the beginning, took it back to what Sir said, Mujibad. It is very interesting that the former Director General of Doordarshan Kendra Kolkata, Mr. Abhijit Das Gupta, who's an expert, unlike me, on Bangladesh, and who has covered the 1971 War of Independence and kept going to Bangladesh after, said that one of the biggest mistakes of Sheikh Mujib was to give clemency to the very people who opposed the idea of Bangladesh. So within Bangladesh, we often forget that what was Bangladesh? Bangladesh before 71 was East Pakistan. They took a conscious decision to not remain a part of India. They took that decision mostly on the grounds of religiosity. Bangladesh is a fascinating example of South Asia, where in 1971 and after, the main political thought, or the political thought that remained in power, wanted to conduct an experiment where your language, your culture, you could put that over your religiosity. It was a flawed experiment, but it was a very interesting experiment nonetheless. Which is why from 71 onwards, in fact before 71 there was mostly one thought, but post 71, there is in Bangladesh's bloodstream these two competing thoughts. One thought is the idea of the Bangladeshi as a Bengali, who speak the same language as us, who sings the same similar songs, who comes to act in our films. Our singers, songwriters, actors, producers also go and act in their films or sing songs in their stadiums. But along with that, there has remained an idea of Bangladesh, which is actually the idea of East Pakistan, where they want to see a country which is very deeply, very markedly Islamic. And the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh head, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, has openly, and it's there, if it's a Google search away, in their newspapers and news portals has said time and again, and as recently as last year before the fall of Hasina, though he's saying some pro-India things these days, he has said that he wants a Bangladesh where there is no more man-made laws, where there is only Sharia law. Stated aim of Dr. Shafiqur Rahman, okay, that enough of man-made laws in Bangladesh, we want Sharia. And Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh is a very motivated, very organized, politico-religious body, okay. Now this is the competing bloodstream that I'm talking about now. The problem most of us make when we talk about Bangladesh, that we choose a either or. We look at buildings being brought down, temples being vandalized, and we say that, look, this is Bangladesh's reality. Okay? That argument is wrong. There is another argument which says that, look, there is great secularism in Bangladesh, There is, like I said, the example I gave you, the story I myself covered, 300-year-old Kali temple being rebuilt by Muslims of the village. Okay, this is the idea of Bangladesh. Both these ideas are both right and wrong because they are competing ideas in the bloodstream of Bangladesh. And that's the problem with narrative building. And that's why I said yes to Pradipto, because it's only people like you, people who are serious thinkers and who will go on to become serious academics, hopefully, who would engage with these competing ideas and not do an either or. Bangladesh, like most parts of South Asia or Indian subcontinent, is very difficult to decipher because there is no one truth. India changes every mile, so does Bangladesh. Is it true that there is anti-Indianism in Bangladesh? Yes, it's true. I have seen it myself. But is it true that that's because of religiosity? No, it's not. Like I said, they are angry with India because they think India is a big brother. But do some of them not see India from the lens of a Muslim majority country looking at a Hindu majority country? They do. They definitely do. And that is a question going forward that Bangladesh has to answer. It has to decide that whether that flawed experiment of trying to put your language and culture over your religiosity will carry on, or whether they will decidedly say that, okay, this is an Islamic country and this is how it's going to be. There will be, if not Sharia law, maybe taking it too far. That's the conspiracy theorists talking. Or, suddenly people will say, oh, Bangladesh is going to be the next Afghanistan, Syria. None of that will happen, I think. But there will be a very definitively Islamic identity to the country. That is the question before Bangladesh. And, the topic today is peace. It's peace within that they have to look at, not just peace without, not peace with India, not peace at the border, not peace on the streets, but they have to somewhere make peace with who they are. If there are many things Hasina did wrong, which all of us know. There are many things Mujib also did wrong, and it's not just giving clemency to people who oppose the idea of Bangladesh. But I think beyond Hasina, Mujib, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, King's Party, student coordinators coming into power by forming a political party, Bangladesh has to make peace with what it is. Is it a country, will it remain a country based on religiosity, or will it continue this very difficult experiment, which India also is in its own way is grappling with, of putting a common culture, common language over religiosity? That's all I can say, and I hope that Bangladesh succeeds in its experiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Snehalata, for that very interesting and detailed lecture. Rather, you took us down the streets and lanes of Bangladesh. You gave us a lens to witness what happened, and you helped us understand facts, details, and events. I'm sure our students must also be very thrilled to hear so many different ideas and viewpoints. You, most importantly, you took us to lived experiences, which are so rare but so important at the same time. Now, students, as we have come to the end of our first technical session, I would open the floor for question answers. In case you have a question, please keep it short. And please first introduce yourself to our chairperson and to our speaker. Tell your name and put your question. Okay? Do they have a hand mic? Can you just speak there? Yes.
Hello.
Yes. And I would request Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti to please come up and conduct the question answer session. And yes, we have hand mics also.
Thank you, sir, for your beautiful presentation. Now, I have just one question for you. That is, we all know that you correctly pointed out that there's the conflict between the Bengali identity and the Islamic identity. But since you have been to Bangladesh, what is the status of the Bihari Muslims who had supported West Pakistan during the 71 war. I think from what I know that they do not have the citizenship rights. Am I correct? And
You are correct, but I think, people are very amazed to see that this sudden love for Pakistan that Bangladeshis have, right? It's almost that, how did this happen? Pakistan did what it did in 1971, the war of independence and the atrocities. 3 million people, I think Bangladesh only says 3 million people were killed. Countless women were raped and all of that. But I think the current generation do not necessarily see it from that prism. So I think that yes, there is a difference in language, but they may not have citizenship, but I think the religiosity will not keep the Bihari Muslim very far away from the Bangladesh that is. Because if they can be okay with Pakistan today, a country that literally killed 3 million people because it's the same religion, I don't think Bihari Muslims will have a problem in today's Bangladesh.
what I have seen in the YouTube, that they are still being confined in certain areas.
Yes.
Like on the camps.
Yes.
And that is almost similar to the Bengalis who are in West Pakistan, particularly in Karachi and some other
Yes,
areas.
but I think from my interactions mostly in Dhaka University, I think they have a problem with that. I think they would want them to be integrated to the mainstream.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Halder. My name is Satanik. I have a question for you. Recently in Iran, there was a survey about the religiosity of Iranian people. And I think almost 50% claimed that they do not identify anymore with the Islamic identity. And there has been this anti-hijab movement going on there with full force. Now, what happened last year with Sheikh Hasina reminds me a bit of what happened in 1979 in Iran. A bit like a religious extremism took place and toppled a more secular government. So perhaps do you see the potential for that in Bangladesh, where perhaps maybe a decade or two down the line, there is a resurgence of liberalism, or there is a questioning of, there's a rise of atheism or something like that?
Rise of atheism, I don't know. There are of course atheists in Bangladesh. It's very difficult. Like I said, which is why it's very difficult to sort of answer these questions, because I have seen in Dhaka University, for instance, there's a girl wearing a hijab but also smoking a cigarette and holding her boyfriend's hand. So when you want to, when you say, okay, this is conservatism, this is liberalism, what do you say about that? Okay. So these are very difficult questions. There is a certain degree of atheism, mostly in Dhaka. I mean, that's not even a percentage. But I think this dual identity, if not necessarily atheism, this dual identity of trying to be both Islamic and modern, Bangladesh will continue to grapple with. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. I don't know what's happening this year, politically at least. But I hope that they don't become Iran, or they don't become Iraq or one of those spaces. I hope they continue to retain some of what made them them.
Tantalizing than achieving, so let's put that aside. But what I'm very interested to know is, in the entire discourse that you actually had on Bangladesh, you didn't talk about one political party, which is BNP. It didn't come in the discussion. So what I'm trying to understand is, how do you see BNP's role in the Bangladesh politics now? Why I'm saying this is because they are trying to make a statement. For example, today I have seen in a newspaper in Bangladesh, they are saying that what happened to 32 Dhanmondi is actually something that might be done by India. There might be an influence of India. Are they actually withering away from the politics of Bangladesh? If so, then who comes next? Because this Muhammad Yunus phase will definitely come to an end, sooner or later. So will there be a possibility of Jamaat coming into Bangladesh as a political force that they haven't been in the last 20-25 years? They have been out of the parliamentary politics in Bangladesh. Is there a possibility of that?
It's a good question, Abhishek, though I don't know why you are asking me the question. You wrote the book with me. But I think Bangladesh Nationalist Party is very much there in, very relevant today in the politics of Bangladesh. If you were to hold an election today, like say next week, next month, it's my guess that the Bangladesh Nationalist Party will come to power. They are very worried that elections are not being held, okay? Muhammad Yunus has said that end of this year or early next year, he has talked about electoral reforms, a whole host of other reforms, which may, as you know, can take forever. So what they're, this is very weird, but there is now in Bangladesh, actually within the voters of Bangladesh, gradually, very gradually, a little love for Hasina and Army League. Okay, so that's what the BNP is very scared. Because there was extreme anger against Hasina, which you saw, and which is there in the mob. But looking at what Yunus is doing, okay, looking at what's happening with Dhanmondi and elsewhere, and this actress was taken to jail for speaking up against the government. BNP fears that if this goes on for a while, what if Army League, there is support for Army League grows. So I think, Army League is still they have a lot of vote share, even today. Hasina may be unpopular, but politically Bangladesh is still, Army League is still very relevant in Bangladesh. But I think BNP would want an earlier election and not a later election, so that Army League, if they are allowed to take part in the elections, do not do as well as they want them to do. About BNP's anti-India statement, BNP's entire politics is built on anti-India statements. So they have to keep saying those things. I suspect, and I have some sources, that BNP is talking to India. Back-channel talks between BNP and India are already happening. So BNP, but I don't think that the 2001 experiment of BNP Jamaat coming to power together and the atrocities on Hindus that took place, I don't think BNP will walk that line, because now it's more complicated. Now they would, even if they speak anti-India things, Jamaat, you don't know what they want, but the Jamaat's vote share is very less. So they are extremely socially active, but I don't think that politically they amount to much.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm Dipanjan Aditya from Philosophy Department, this college itself. First of all, thank you for being present at our college today. Sir, my question is, what is the source of religious fundamentalism that is present in today's Bangladesh, and how will it affect the Hindus in future as well? And do you think that it will continue, or will it just, stop somewhere?
I fear it will continue. The source of it is the religious education that is imparted, right from the madrasas to the Waj Mahafils, and you just need to be there to those Waj Mahafils, which are extremely popular in the hinterland of Bangladesh, to hear what they're saying. And I don't think that's coming to an end anytime soon. Every time Bangladesh feels that India is doing something which is majoritarian, or which pushes the idea of a Hindu Rashtra, there is a competing competing majoritarianism, competing hard religiosity that come their way, that they take recourse to. So, but that apart, what India is doing, India's politics apart, in Bangladesh's society there is hard religiosity, which their newspapers, their news portals don't talk about, which if you travel across Bangladesh you will get to witness. So as long as that is there, I don't think, like I said, I gave you the example of my friend, the secular blogger. He has been to a madrasa himself. So if that's what you're being taught on a daily basis, how do you think it's going to come to an end anytime soon? And with political instability, it's going to get worse.
You said that when India lost the cricket tournament, everybody celebrated in Bangladesh. In 2023, the World Cup, there was a match between India and Bangladesh being held at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Gujarat. And we have seen that how throughout the match there was extreme abuse of by the Indians,
On
and
Bangladesh.
even yes, on the Bangladeshis, there were things thrown at them. Even the soft toy tiger
Yes.
that the Bangladeshis did, that was stabbed and it was like mutilated
Yes.
and it was displayed.
Yes.
Now these are very powerful visuals,
Yes.
right? So when such things are shown in the Bangladesh television, even as an Indian, I was feeling ashamed. How do you think that would always this hatred towards India is there? So the
Yes.
big brotherly attitude that once you talked about informally. So how it can be?
Which is what I said, that the boy I saw today, in the beginning of my speech, I said that the boy who quoted from The Dark Knight. Now he is necessarily not somebody who has gone to a madrasa, or he might have been, but he is also somebody who is consuming Hollywood cinema, right? So he's not. His anger towards Mujib's house, or also towards India and Sheikh Hasina, because she's perceived to be close to India, does not come out of a Hindu-Muslim binary. It comes out of India's hard stance on Bangladesh. The fact that many Bangladeshis think that during Sheikh Hasina's reign, India literally converted Bangladesh into a colony, and also how Indians, at least some parts of India, they perceive Bangladeshis, and how they verbally abuse, or the stuff that is said. And so, of course, this competing majoritarian narratives will remain a problem, and which also I think Taslima Nasreen wrote about in Lodja, that every time there is a communal flare-up in India, you see a direct reflection of that from their side. Like Lodja begins after the fall of Babri Masjid, right? So I completely accept that it's not as if it's just religiosity that's to blame here, and India is not at fault. India is at fault, of course. But India will, I think, whichever government comes to power, India will continue to remain a bit of a big brother. How do you see that changing? Do you really, of course, you can. Should India have spoken to the other political stakeholders in Bangladesh? I would say yes. If this is being recorded and if it will put out, a lot of my friends from Delhi will abuse me. But I think India should have spoken to Bangladesh Nationalist Party, also to Jamaat. Why not? It's an important religio-political force. India kept only speaking to Hasina. So India should have engaged, since it's such an important neighbor. India should have engaged with a wider set of political players in Bangladesh. But even suppose, going forward, India does that, do you think it will necessarily stop being a big brother or stop arm twisting? It will. So I don't think this going anytime soon. And then you have this other layer of religiosity, which is also there. So it makes it it becomes very complex, that even if there are people who don't want to engage with you or don't want to look at you from the religious lens, it's your big brotherly attitude towards them, or the way you sort of think of them, talk about them, that makes them anti you. So it's a very complex problem.
You want to take it first, or
Thank you, sir, for your very fine speech. And I'm Rupkatha from the Political Science Department of this college itself. As you mentioned about the existence of multiple layers, say, of religiosity and seeing India as a big brotherly figure. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think is the controlling compass of diplomacy behind the existence of these multiple truths? Or are they a facade?
No, they're not a facade. You see, India and Bangladesh will have to come to the negotiating table. They can't live without each other. We have to just learn to live with new realities, and we have to continue to stress on aspects that are mutually beneficial to both of us. I think that's the hope going forward. It's not a facade. Bangladesh needs India. India also needs Bangladesh. They're strategically very important. There may be a thaw in relations currently, because see, I think currently Delhi's position is it's not even an elected government. So why would I do business with somebody who is unelected? Now, you can agree with that, you can disagree with that, but I'm sure whenever there is an election that is held in Bangladesh, later this year, early next year, India will definitely sit on the negotiating table with Bangladesh. And beyond religiosity, look at things that are mutually beneficial to each other, trade, other interests.
All right, sir. Thank you.
You had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Some people argue that Hindus. After this Obhuthan, Hindus were killed, Mandirs were destroyed. So many people argued that this is not there because they are Hindu, but because they were Awami League supporters. That's why they were being killed and raped and murdered and looted. So what is the merit of this argument?
I don't buy this argument, and I'll tell you why from the words of somebody who's neither a Hindu nor a Muslim. He's a Buddhist. Okay, so his name is Parban Chakma. He works for the Daily Star. I happened to interview him last week. He was part of the movement against Hasina. He wanted Hasina gone. Now what has happened since she went is this hill tribes, Chittagong hill tribes. So there is the prefix indigenous attached to them. Now from the textbooks, school textbooks, that has been taken away. Now they were protesting outside Dhaka University and they were attacked. And they were attacked by Muslim students, along with whom they had gone for anti-Hasina rallies. Okay? And one of their leaders, one of the Buddhist leaders, this lady, it's there in the news, she was brutally attacked. Okay? And they were told that there's nothing indigenous anymore. There is no Bengali, there is no Buddhist, there's nothing, there's only Bangladeshi. So yes, Hindus are traditionally in Bangladesh seen as Awami League voters. Okay? Though one of my very good friends, Nitai Roy Chaudhuri, he is the vice chairman of Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and his daughter Nipun Roy Chaudhuri is ferociously anti-Hasina and very prominent Dhaka leader of Bangladesh Nationalist Party. But Hindus are generally seen as voters of Awami League. So of course there was an anger due to that. But to just say that they were attacked because they were supporters and voters of Awami League is wrong. And which is why I spoke to you about Parban Chakma. There is definitely a concerted effort to wipe out any other identity except a Bangladeshi identity, which is essentially a Muslim identity.
I have a last question. Okay. After that. What is it like to be a woman in Bangladesh? A Muslim woman and also a Hindu woman. I'm talking about religion and gender intersecting with each other. Does the matter change when it's a Hindu man and a Hindu woman? Does it affect her gender in any different manner? That was what I was wondering.
Ma'am, I'll just come to your question in a minute, but I want to say something else, Pratip. That, for instance, when we say, and Abhishek knows this, when we say Hindu in Bangladesh, it also depends on what kind of in Bangladesh. For instance, there are Hindus who are very influential, very well-to-do. Okay, during Sheikh Hasina's time, and this is very important for all of you. During Sheikh Hasina's time, it's a little bit like the reservation debate in India. Okay, during Sheikh Hasina's time, I know a personal example where a very senior officer in Bangladesh police, I know that gentleman, Muslim officer, he was denied a promotion because his friend, who happened to be a Hindu, had to be promoted. And this was during Hasina's time. Okay, so there are Hindu businessmen, Hindu industrialists, Hindu actors, Chanchal Chaudhuri, many others who have done very well in Bangladesh and who continue to do very well. So it's not as if everybody is hunting for Hindus and pulling them out to kill them. Coming to your question, ma'am, likewise it depends on where you are in Bangladesh. So there are this few sanitized spaces in Dhaka, Gulshan 1, Gulshan 2, Dhanmondi, Baridhara, where if you go, you'll think that you are in Delhi or Bombay or Calcutta or even some western city. So I happen to know, because while I was researching the book, I wanted to also have a chapter on the art and cultures scene in Bangladesh. There are women artists and actresses and human rights activists who are very quote unquote modern. Okay, I don't know what markers of modernity are, but whatever the visual markers of modernity are, they are very, their lifestyle echo the cool set from our city, our big cities. But I have also seen that, and this is something that is of concern to them. You know, I had gone to Bangladesh because my parents come from there when I was 14, 15, the first time I went. And when I went again in 2022 for a book, I saw Dhaka being covered by burqas. Now clothing is a matter of choice. But even some Muslim women in Bangladesh who are, have told me that, look, it's okay, but the way it's being forced down on us, literally societally, and not just necessarily by, after the fall of Hasina, societally, if you do not wear a burqa outside certain spaces, it's, people are going to look at you. So it's a problem. And this is from people who are, like you said. So, but I give this other example of this girl in a hijab who's smoking a cigarette and holding her boyfriend's hand. So that's also there. So I think experiment of trying to be both, trying to be religious, trying to be modern, and that's where the debate gets more complex.
Hello. I was just curious as to your opinion about the stance of the youth in West Bengal. Do they also have an anti-Bangladesh stance, or is it just that they're unhappy with the state of events that's happening and the extremism?
You tell me, you're the youth in West Bengal.
That's why I asked your opinion.
Can I give a politically incorrect statement? You know, this picture of Abu Sayyed, the young boy who was shot by a rubber bullet. It hit his chest and he died, arms stretched, during the July Revolution. Now Abu Sayyed almost became like Che Guevara, okay? And his that pose of his with his arms stretched. It came on the covers of T-shirts and all of that. And I happened to follow some of you on Facebook, so I saw that all of you are sort of, lapping him up like you should. It was a horrific thing to have happened, to be shot at and from such close range by a rubber bullet that his heart failed and he died. Nobody did the hard task of actually finding out who Abu Sayyed is. Now, no one should be killed, let me say this, but Abu Sayyed was part of the Jamaat-e-Islami student wing, okay? He was Chhatro Shibir. Does it mean he should be killed? No, not at all. He should have been alive. His view should have been heard. But I think what you ask the youth of West Bengal, like the youth elsewhere, do not perhaps necessarily engage with the multiple layers of reality that exists in Bangladesh, which you should, because you're educated. You should. There are truths that are convenient to us. See, when you become God forbid, you become a journalist, you have to then frame your argument according to where you are, which media company you are working with, who will send you to jail if you write against them. But as academics, I think, or as serious thinkers, you should not fall into the trap of a definitive narrative, and you should continue to examine multiple layers, even layers that you do not find appetizing. So yeah, I think the youth needs to learn more. We quickly say, dictator Hasina and sort of secular others, this and that. It's more complex than that. I am the one generally asking questions, so too many questions my way, yeah.
Hello. You've mentioned that Bangladesh has a very strong anti-India stance. Yet India continues to extend support to Bangladesh whenever Bangladesh needs it. So what do you think is the cause for this one-way diplomacy and India always extending a helping hand?
No, it was not a one-way diplomacy. Sheikh Hasina was a great strategic friend of India. So it was definitely two-way diplomacy till she was there. The way diplomacy works, I don't think countries necessarily engage with the civil society. Governments engage with governments. They see strategic relations are developed on the basis of mutual interests of countries, okay? People don't really look at what's happening in the civil society. They should perhaps, but they don't. So while there was this rise and spread of anti-Indianism, within Bangladesh for the last 10, I mean, maybe it was there, it must have been there before also, but definitely it was there in the last couple of years. India and Bangladesh, Delhi and Dhaka rather, continue to be great friends. So it's not a one-way diplomacy. India also gained a lot from Bangladesh during Hasina's time, and perhaps when there will be an elected government, there will be again strategic friendship. However, that may not necessarily sort of tone down the anti-Indianism in the civil society.
Well, grand good morning, sir. This is Sovanjit Mugavadde from Department of Political Science. My question to you is that anything which happens in Bangladesh, it certainly affects India socio-economically or politically or geopolitically. So is Bangladesh's action was not praised by raw or Indian diplomacy? Is this India's failure?
I have no way of avoiding this question. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was because, I covered the January 2024 elections. January 7, 2024 is when the last polls happened. And I covered the election. I was there in Bangladesh. Trust me, there were people, candidates, who were telling their opponents that I have the support of RAW. So RAW was, like they say in Bangla, RAW was a juju for certain political activists, certain sort of people who are running for MPs to scare their opponents. So I have the support of RAW. So if that's the notion about you, that you are omnipresent in Bangladesh, then it definitely is a diplomatic failure. It definitely is a humongous intelligence failure.
So curious to know, because my father was posted in Bangladesh and he was kidnapped and he disappeared for 3 days. We did not have any contact with him.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Is he okay now?
He is okay now. It happened in 2024.
Okay.
Okay.
After the fall of Hasina. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, students. And now I would ask our chairperson, Dr. Shantanu Chakrabarti, to please sum up whatever has been discussed so that we can wind up and leave.